What truly drives men to surrender their will? Fear of the sword or hunger for what they cannot have? Understand this, it is not abundance that binds men, but scarcity. Deny them, and their desire sharpens into desperation. Grant them little, and they will crawl for more. What is rare becomes sacred, even if it is worthless in itself. This is the secret power, not in what you possess, but in what you withhold. For men are never more easily ruled than when they crave what lies just beyond their reach. And so I ask, are you ready to hear how scarcity becomes the perfect weapon of control? What is it that ignites the fire of desire in men? Not abundance, not plenty, not what is freely given, but what is rare, what is difficult to grasp, what lies just beyond their reach. Scarcity is the mother of longing. When something is withheld, even if it is trivial, it begins to shimmer with the illusion of value. Men will walk past gold when their coffers are full, yet they will beg and fight for a morsel of bread when hunger gnaws at them. It is not the object itself that matters, it is the perception of its rarity. The mind does not measure worth by utility, but by how difficult it is to obtain. Power does not reside in the possession of resources, but in the mastery of their flow. A kingdom may overflow with grain, yet if every man has his fill, the ruler commands no leverage. But let the granaries be locked, the keys held by one hand alone, and suddenly every stomach becomes a chain, every hunger a bond of obedience. The true art is not in creating wealth, but in controlling its distribution. Whoever holds the power to grant or withhold transforms need into loyalty and dependence into submission. Men will kneel not because you are strong, but because you hold what they cannot reach without you. The soldier does not fight merely for coin, but because only his service opens the way to pay. The merchant does not bow because of admiration, but because his access to markets is granted, or denied, by your decree. Even the proudest noble bends when what he desires most rests in your grasp. Scarcity is the invisible chain, distribution is the lock, you are the keeper of the key. Think of water in a desert. Alone a man will die of thirst, no matter his pride, his courage, or his honor. But place beside him a cup in your hand, and suddenly he will crawl, he will beg, he will obey every word for a single drop. What makes the water powerful is not its nature, but its scarcity, and what makes you powerful is that you decide who drinks and who does not. Control of resources is not merely economic, it is psychological. Men believe their survival, their dreams, their very dignity depend upon you, and so they bind themselves to your rule with chains stronger than iron the chains of necessity. Yet this control must be wielded with precision. To release too much weakens your grip, to withhold entirely breeds desperation, and desperation breeds rebellion. A ruler must learn to give with one hand while taking with the other, to grant just enough to sustain hope, while never enough to end dependence. Each concession should feel like salvation, each ration like a gift, each allowance like an act of mercy. Thus, men will not see you as their jailer but as their benefactor, even as they live shackled by your control. Scarcity need not always be real, it need only be believed. Men are not ruled by truth, but by perception, and in this lies the subtle art of power. Even when abundance lies hidden in your grasp, conceal it. Let men imagine that what you hold is rare, precious, beyond their reach. A thing cloaked in shadows will command more reverence than the same thing displayed in open light. Men are deceived not by facts but by appearances, and in their blindness they will cling to illusions as if they were reality. It is not the object that must be rare, but the access to it. A ruler who pours gifts into every hand cheapens himself, for what is freely given is lightly regarded, but restrict your favors, ration your generosity, and suddenly every gesture carries weight, every offering becomes a treasure. Men are easily persuaded that what is scarce must also be valuable, for their hearts measure worth not by the thing itself, but by how much effort it costs to attain. Thus, to conceal abundance is to magnify desire. Consider the festival where food and wine flow without end. At first the crowd rejoices, but soon excess dulls their senses, drunkenness leads to indifference, and what was once cherished is tossed aside. Contrast this with a feast where the portions are limited, where the last cup is fought over, where the final loaf is guarded like gold. It is not abundance that inflames the spirit, but the sense of limitation. Men hunger most for what they are told they cannot have, and they revere most what is kept just out of reach. This illusion is the weapon of rulers and merchants alike. The market stalls that boast of vast supply, the rulers who promise rare audience, the temples that veil their idols. Each understands that men long for what they believe is slipping away. If abundance were revealed, desire would wither. But when scarcity is suggested, longing grows fierce, and men will pay dearly, serve loyally, and fight savagely for what is in truth plentiful. The brilliance lies not in how much you possess, but in how well you disguise it. A full treasury can be shown as empty, a crowded storehouse displayed as bare. In this way, you turn plenty into leverage and visibility into power. Men will never suspect they are chasing a phantom, for in their eyes rarity and worth are one and the same. Consider how lovers are enthralled not by constant presence, but by fleeting glimpses, withheld embraces, unanswered letters. Absence more than presence inflames the heart. A ruler, too, must understand this principle. To give freely is to make oneself common, to withhold is to make oneself indispensable. What is always available is always taken for granted, but what is scarce becomes sacred. If a man must struggle for your favor, he will guard it more jealously than if it were handed to him without resistance. Scarcity sharpens men's senses. When they fear they may lose what they desire, they awaken from their slumber and focus every thought, every scheme, every ounce of strength upon securing it. Even the dullest mind becomes cunning under the pressure of want. It is in this sharpening of desire that power lies, for men who desire are men who can be directed. Their hunger blinds them to the strings that guide their movements. They think themselves pursuing their own ends, when in truth they are being led by the hand of the one who controls what they crave. You see, when plenty abounds, men grow complacent. Their appetites dull, their ambitions fade, and their spirit weakens in idleness. But introduce lack, and suddenly they are stirred into action, willing to fight, to scheme, to beg, to betray, all for the promise of what is withheld. Scarcity is the spark that awakens ambition, and ambition is the leash that holds men captive. Even the strongest will is softened by want, for no man can resist the fire of longing once it takes hold of him. This is why the wise never squander abundance. Even when plenty rests in their hands, they conceal it, release it sparingly, and let others taste only enough to be reminded of what they lack. By rationing desire, they elevate themselves to the position of gatekeeper, the sole source of fulfillment. What is rare becomes not only desirable but also a symbol of authority, for the one who controls access to it controls the hearts of men. When men are seized by desire, reason falls silent. Scarcity sharpens this desire until it consumes them entirely, stripping away their judgment, their restraint, their pride. A man who is satisfied weighs choices carefully, but a man who is starving sees only what he lacks. Hunger blinds him, thirst enslaves him, longing makes him pliable. In the grip of want, even the strongest will bend, for necessity is the most relentless master. Scarcity does more than create longing, it turns men into enemies of one another. When the prize is limited, cooperation withers and rivalry takes root. Men who once stood as allies will suddenly regard each other with suspicion, measuring every gesture, every word, as a potential threat to their own gain. Scarcity narrows the vision until the collective good is forgotten and only the individual appetite remains. Where abundance might unite, scarcity divides, and in division lies the opportunity for control. A ruler needs no armies to weaken the bonds between men if he knows how to make them compete for scraps. Let resources be few, and men will fight to secure them, pouring their energy into defeating each other instead of challenging authority. The ruler, elevated above the chaos, becomes the arbiter of supply, the judge of who gains and who starves. He need only watch as men destroy themselves in the frenzy of competition, leaving him untouched and unquestioned. Consider the marketplace where only a handful of goods are said to remain. Buyers, who moments ago were neighbors, now glare with hostility, each fearing the other will snatch away the last piece. Their quarrel is not with the seller, but with each other. In this way, scarcity redirects anger away from power and towards rivals. The ruler who masters this art ensures that his subjects remain distracted, consumed by petty struggles, never unified enough to challenge his throne. And yet, competition is not merely destructive, it is also revealing. Under the pressure of scarcity, men show their true nature. Some become desperate and reckless, others cunning and ruthless. Loyalty, morality, kinship, all are tested and often shattered when men believe that survival depends on surpassing one another. The ruler who observes closely learns much about the character of his subjects, seeing clearly who is weak, who is ambitious, who is dangerous, and who is utterly dependent. This is why scarcity must be carefully maintained. It is not merely a tool of hunger, but a weapon of division. Keep men fighting amongst themselves, and they will never turn their combined strength against you. Let them believe that their greatest obstacle is their neighbor, and they will not notice the hand that withholds from them all. You will find that men under desire abandon the very principles they once swore to uphold. The merchant who claimed he would never cheat will gladly betray his oath for the rare contract that secures his survival. The soldier who boasted of courage will trade his honor for the promise of plunder. Even the noble who guards his dignity will kneel if scarcity threatens his comfort. Under the pressure of desire, masks fall away and men reveal the weakness at their core. This is why scarcity is such a potent weapon. It does not merely weaken bodies, it disarms souls. Consider the gambler who risks everything for one more chance, the lover who humiliates himself for one more touch, the pauper who sells his freedom for one more meal. Each is a testament to the same truth that desire, once inflamed by lack, makes men surrender willingly what force could never take from them. Chains of iron provoke resistance, but chains of longing are embraced. They believe they are chasing fulfillment, yet every step they take only binds them closer to the one who holds what they crave. The cunning ruler does not need whips or swords to command obedience when desire is weaponized. He need only place the object of longing within sight yet out of reach, allowing men to exhaust themselves in pursuit. They will convince themselves they act freely, when in truth every action is guided by their hunger. This is the perfection of control, when men believe their servitude is of their own choosing. But beware, for desire must never be fully satisfied. A hunger fed to excess becomes a hunger forgotten. The art lies in granting glimpses, crumbs, promises, never the feast itself. For as long as men remain unsated, they remain enslaved by their yearning. There is danger in wielding scarcity without restraint. Deny too much, and men will cease to beg and instead rise in rage, for despair makes them reckless and willing to lose everything. Yet grant too much, and their hunger vanishes, their loyalty withers, and the very chain that bound them to you dissolves. The mastery lies not in withholding entirely, nor in giving freely, but in striking the delicate balance that keeps men in a state of eternal longing, suspended between fear and hope. Hope is the balm that soothes the wound of scarcity. A man who believes tomorrow may bring relief will endure today's suffering. He will toil, he will obey, he will wait with patience, for the promise of satisfaction, however small, is enough to chain his will. Even the most oppressed will endure their condition if they are convinced that their deliverance is near. This is why a ruler must never extinguish hope, but ration it as carefully as he does bread and coin. A single gesture of mercy, a token of generosity, a rare gift of access, these keep the flame alive. Men will forgive deprivation if they are offered a taste of fulfillment, for that taste is enough to convince them that more might one day come. Think of the farmer who waters his fields sparingly. Too little and the crops wither, too much and they drown. But with just enough, the soil remains fertile, the plants grow strong, and the harvest is assured. So it is with power. The people must be given just enough to survive, just enough to hope, just enough to keep their eyes fixed upon you as the source of their relief. Their longing is never sated, but neither is it abandoned. This balance also ensures loyalty, for gratitude grows strongest when men believe they have been rescued from the brink. What they receive may be small, but it appears vast when contrasted against their deprivation. A crumb feels like a feast to the starving, a drop like a river to the parched, by keeping them always near the edge of despair, yet never allowing them to fall fully into it. You ensure they cling to you with desperation disguised as devotion.